Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. I hope that you're all as excited as I am about the guest, none other than Mr. James Skipper, Senior NASA Test Engineer. What a catch. I hope you enjoyed the video with Riley. I put a lot into that, quite a bit of research, and even tried to get in contact with NASA themselves with no response. However, I did reach out to Jim and he responded, and he has been most helpful. He is a perfect gentleman. Now, last night, myself and Casual Spaceman and my moderator Colon, we struggled for a while to get James connected up to the Discord, excuse me, so that we could do a test stream, and we managed to do it. We had some sound issues, but we managed to get him in. And anyway, he is here, thank goodness. He's in the voice channel, but we're just having some final connection problems, I think. But he did pop up about 10 minutes before the video ended. I'll bring in Casual Spaceman in a little while, but I think he and Colon are currently working just to get Jim in. So, a bit of a shock, I think, and I hope you agree that James is quite a catch to get onto the stream. I do have a super chat to read out from the video. Mr. Touchpad super chatted 200 Swedish krona, a little compensation for all the pain this defecation excavation must have caused. Thank you very much for that, Touchpad. It's very, very much appreciated, but I hope you'll understand I'm not going to do a sex dance tonight. Some other time. So, Casual Spaceman and or Colon, I still have my headphones open on the Discord, so give me a shout. Give me a shout when we've managed to get Jim connected up. So, who do we have in here tonight? Mr. Victory, as usual, and Multi Tom Tom. Multi Tom Tom, I'm still waiting for you to contact me with your undebunkable video for me to debunk. Mr. Sense, we'll try saying that 10 times as fast. Forrest Pfeiffer, no, not the dance tonight. I'll have to owe that to Touchpad. We'll do it on another stream. Remind me, Touch. Yeah, so how many fails? How many fails did Riley get? There was someone else in there, I forget who said they'd already sent similar information to Riley. And indeed, subsequent to me working on the video, I saw someone in one of his comment sections do the same. But since he is so out there and up front with all this rubbish, I felt I should continue and rub his nose in it a little. I think he deserves it. So much fail, so much Dunning-Kruger. While we're waiting for Jim, and I can see the guys are still working trying to get him in, I thought I'd give you a little bit of background. He did study electrical engineering at university, and he did then join NASA as a young man in his early 20s. I'm not sure what work he was involved with at the beginning, but for 1965, for Ed White's spacewalk on Gemini 4, that picture which we showed, that is James testing the Gemini spacesuit down to minus 300 Fahrenheit in a hard vacuum. That's just amazing, absolutely astonishing. He also had involvement with Skylab, as you saw, and received recognition for that. All the testing, the low pressure testing for the astronauts and the equipment. I think his job title was something like senior test engineer for manned and hazardous space missions, something like that. Some really interesting things. I see that Colon's chatting with him on one of my other voice channels. They're probably just getting this sorted out. So hopefully very, very soon we'll have the man on here himself. Now, as you can imagine, Jim, having left university pre-65, is a couple of years older than myself. So we need some patience. He's ever such a nice guy, a real gentleman. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask. We're not going to bombard him, but yeah, we'll put some questions to him. The other guest is Mr. Casual Spaceman, and I hope you understand why. Obviously, Kaz is very, very keen, as I suspect a lot of us are, but Kaz perhaps even more so, very keen on NASA, space, rockets, all that sort of stuff. And when I got in touch with Jim, I thought Casual would be the perfect guest to have in here as well, because of his knowledge. So we might be able to get some interesting chat, as well as some background. I'm quite interested in how, excuse me, in how Jim and all the others who worked at NASA, what was it like for them? Did it feel life-changing? Was it just a job at the time? Pie Parrot, hello to you. Mr. Victory, good evening. Lots of other names I recognise. Griffin, who else? Bo Nielsen I've seen before. Hugh Jars, and my patron Edwulf Sletchfurter. I'm getting that. Unirach, hello, hello. And as I said, Multi Tom Tom. Thanks, pal. Colon and Casual, give us a shout with any updates. Okay. Yeah, so now I've got to try and chat and fill some time until we can get the gentleman in. I was saying I did have a nice chat with him last night, and what I will do is put a link to his website in the description to this video, so you'll be able to see that if you come back later, or if I get time to do it during the stream. But it'd probably be better if I do that later, because I don't want to risk messing anything up. So, what did you think of the video? What did you think of Riley? Tutty Bogle, hello. Any comments on Riley? Believing that those thick concrete walls are required to establish that vacuum? I'd never heard of Plumbrook before. Didn't take me too long to find out why those concrete walls are there. Why can't he do a bit of research? Who else we got in here? Ooh, Tom C. Tutor, Sean Hawkins, good evening to you. Forrest Pfeiffer, a regular, and Irish Stew. Yeah, so please, any questions? Gather them together, put them on hold, and I'll give a shout out in a while. Skyfly Bright, I saw you here on the side chat for the live stream. It's an after show live stream. You need to watch the show first. I'll do that straight away. Mr. Victory, thank you very much, sir. A super chat for 5 of his finest US dollars for a great premiere video and after show. Thank you, Victory. As always, much appreciated. Do you know what? That hasn't appeared on OBS yet. Maybe it's a bit of a delay. Never mind. Yeah, sorry, I really don't want to waffle. I'm not quite sure what's happening. I can see Colon's working with Jim. Casual, do you have any updates for us? Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I knew that everyone else there couldn't hear what Casual was saying. They have got James on the server, but there are some issues with sound, which is what we had last night, but we did get it straightened out. Philosopher of Nonsense missed the show but had to be here. Thank you very much, Philosopher of Nonsense. Yes, George, and I'm sorry, George, I don't know how you say your surname. Natiuk, a bit of a tongue twister for me. How can Riley's research abilities be questioned after his classic disaster with Foucault? Well, what about his density tower and his little diagram with the sun floating on the top? to say nothing of his experiment and testing water density with the TDS meter. The Dunning-Kruger is strong in that one. Now, I am no scientist. I'll be the first to hold my hands up. If I made any mistakes in that video, those mistakes are mine, not James's. Yeah, people have pointed out in comments I've got something wrong before now. And I have a look, yeah, they're right. I hold my hands up and I've learnt something. I guess that's the decent thing to do. It's the sensible thing to do. Because if you don't, you're not learning anything. You're not progressing. And unless you know everything on day one, you need to learn. You need to progress. I've learnt a lot. Before I started this, there were all sorts of things that I didn't know about, which I do now. Oh, Mr. Victory, your daughter's there. No, no. Mr. Victory's daughter does like a herd of Dell cows. Hello, good to hear from you again. Pipe Parrot, hello, hello. You'll never listen to that song again. I know, I've heard that. That might get played sometime, not tonight though. For those that are wondering, Irish Stew has done a mix of my Anthony Riley song. It was bad before. No, it's rocking, isn't it, Irish? Thank you for that. Now that's interesting. I see one by Tommy Heron. The Earth is an open system. I said it was closed, which is also saying it's an open system is what Riley said as well. And I have seen plenty of people say that. However, I have seen many people say it's closed. The reasoning is that although we do suffer some loss, I mean, it's just atmospheric loss, and we do have some gains, meteorites and whatnot. The actual scale of that is minuscule to the extent that it can be regarded as a closed system. Now, I am not qualified to say any more than that, but on my on the research I did, more was saying that it was closed. I'm happy to argue the toss over that, but either way, even if we said, yep, it's an open system, we're not going to lose our atmosphere, as Riley seems to be saying, because of gravity. I don't understand how he can. I see, Mr. Victory, there's a whole herd of noos in the chat for your daughter. Lovely. I hope she can see those. Yeah, so I don't see how he can accept that there is a gradient coming from that 14.7 at ground, getting lower, 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 as I showed with that coloured box in the corner, with a fading gradient. No green is next to black. It's just a gradual fade away, as I know all you know, and as I know all you understand. Now, does Riley really not understand that, or is he being disingenuous? I mean, it's fine to not understand something, although we would have thought he could have learnt. And I think in the chat we have a couple of guests. So if you're ready in chat, I'll bring them in one at a time. And so first of all, I'm going to get ready to switch on the sound. So first of all, a name you guys probably all know, Mr. Casual Spaceman. Casual Spaceman, hello and good evening to you.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
And how are you feeling? I know you've been a bit under the weather.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a hard time with it this week, but I'm not too bad today. Not too bad.
I know.
Just a bit of a cough. Bit of a cough and still sinuses, but other than that, I'm all right. I'm in good spirits otherwise.
Excellent. Well, I'm really, really glad you managed to drag yourself from your bed or whatever to get here. And now
I'm not quite dead yet.
No, he's not dead yet. Soon. But we also have Mr. James M. Skipper. Skip, come on in, mate. Hello, Skip.
Hello, been back for a while. Let me know.
Hello, Skip. You are now live on the internet talking to all the viewers.
Good.
Oh dear, your sound's breaking up a little. Hopefully it will improve like it did last night. Did you enjoy the video?
Okay. I did.
So I think you said you did.
Yes, I did.
Good
Oh,
stuff.
good. Yeah, we can hear that.
We might need to work on the sound a bit. What do you think, Jim? Let's give it a try, see how you go. Otherwise, we'll have to work on it. But Skip, there is already some messages from you. June Storm says, Skipper, yeah. And Mozza Alice Mist says, hello, Mr. Skipper. We are really pleased to have you. Oh, and Chris O says, Skip, thanks for your work. And Jared Hoffman, hi, Skip. So you've got a lot of friends out here already, mate.
Thanks, John. This is what happens.
What you might be able to do, James, is perhaps close down any applications on your laptop that you might have open that you don't need.
Would you guys like to take
perhaps.
5 minutes and try again?
Yeah, we can work on it, sure.
Okay, Jim, I'll leave you with Casual and Colon if he's around just to have another try and see if we can get your sound a little better, okay? We'll bring you back in a minute. I'm going to switch back off the sound to the viewers. Thank you. See you in a minute. Well, as you can see, we've nearly got him there. Just a couple of issues. Hopefully we'll get it straightened out. BDF 2718. Yeah, we did have problems there yesterday. Let me turn off my mic to the Discord so they won't hear me. 1 second. Yeah, I've turned off sound to them so they can't hear me. Because, as I said, Skip's an older gentleman, years of experience. Yeah, sorry, people. I'm sure you understand. We're just trying to get him to sort it out. He has never used Discord before last night, so it's all new to him. Yeah, so what was I saying? He worked with Skylab. Remember the film Apollo 13, which was sort of based on real life. And there was Ken Mattingly, was the astronaut who was slated to be on 13, but got bumped because there was concern that he was going to have the measles, and you can't have the measles when you're halfway to the moon. And then, of course, Apollo 13 went wrong, and as part of that, they had to build a new filter system because the filter system they had on one part of the ship wouldn't work on another part of the ship, and they were having issues with CO2 rising. Jim was involved with testing that makeshift filter system. He's history. This guy is living history. George, I just use Discord. It's normally not a problem. It is an issue, we think, at Skip's end. Joseph Grant, I'm not sure of your age, but you're probably right. Almost certainly right. So what else have we got? Peter Harrington, as a boy, I saw Skylab crash. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where it went. It was big in the news, and I looked out to see if it flashed over the sky where I was, but I didn't see it, unfortunately. And I'm not sure where it landed. Didn't it land in Australia somewhere? Let me just check, see how they're getting on. It looks like they're getting the sound better. Let me just see. Guys, is the sound working again now? Okay, I'm going to bring you back in if you think it's ready. Okay, give you a bit more. Okay, I'll come back. Okay, they're nearly there. They think. Nearly there. They've got improvements there. So where else? What else are we saying? Crashed in Western Australia. Yes. So who else have we got? What's this Poe Parrot? What have you been up to? Oh, you booted him. Wonder who that was. Perhaps I don't want to know. Australia. Thank you, Philip. Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. I don't know if anyone noticed, but when the video was running, and actually I'm just going to change this. When the video was running, as it started, we already had 101 people waiting, which is just astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. I'm not sure what it peaked at, and I see we've got 130 or so on here, which is excellent. Sorry, we're just getting this sorted. We did think there might be a problem. David Glasser met a number of the Apollo astronauts. Wow. Well, NASA Jim was deeply involved with all that stuff. He, I believe, did work with Ken Mattingly, the bumped Apollo 13 astronaut, and he said that Ken worked like a dog to try and save those guys' lives. So I think we might be a bit closer. No, they're still working. Are you good to go, guys? Okay, let's give this a try. 1 second. And you're back in. Hello, Jim. Can you hear us?
All right.
That sounds
And
oh no,
is that,
it's doing it again. I thought we had you there. Are you okay, Jim?
there's some other I'd be able to repeat that.
Can you hear us okay, Jim? Or it's just that we hear you. You're very broken up. Sometimes it's good, but mostly it's broken up, Jim.
I can hear you.
Yes, sometimes, Jim, you're perfectly clear, and other times, unfortunately, you're not. But
Right, well, we had this same thing this evening. Sometimes you're perfectly clear, and not. So I think it's a similar problem.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard before, but if you don't really need your browser settings, really, you don't need to have your browser open. Rather, you can close those down. So any applications that you're not using, you could close those down, and you could just pretty much just have Discord open. That might help. And also, if your laptop's far away from your modem, you can maybe go a little bit closer if you're using the Wi-Fi signal from your modem. That might help as well.
guys, do you want me to leave you again for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, we'll try a bit longer. We'll see how we go.
Okay, cheers. Let me just turn off the desktop sound.
Did you?
Right. Well, we keep getting there, almost. Dang it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a YouTuber. Yeah, me and Casual had a lovely chat with Jim yesterday. I was just so excited. The idea of speaking to someone who was there. He was there. He was there, for crying out loud. He was involved with Apollo. He was involved with Skylab. All that stuff from, I was going to say my history, but prior to me being born. And the fact that he volunteered and sat in that chamber to test the Gemini spacesuit that Ed White used. I'm not sure it's the exact same suit or just another Gemini spacesuit, but he checked. He volunteered to test the spacesuit because they needed to make sure that when they were down to minus 300, obviously it's heated inside, that it didn't fog up the visor, making it totally useless. I think they tested a few visor types. And they even had, because the suit was not designed for the soles of the feet to be in contact with anything, because they were supposed to be floating around on a spacewalk, they actually had to have a small area of the floor heated, because otherwise the cold would, you know, the heat from the suit would just be leached out through the boots. But even so, he said that that it felt like wearing boots in really snowy weather, so your feet were all cold. I'll go back and check on them in a minute, and let's see. Dark Knight Apologetics. Our guest is Mr. James M. Skipper, retired senior NASA test engineer involved in Gemini, Apollo, Skylab, and some of the stuff to do with Space Shuttle as well. This guy was there through all of it. Yeah, as Caroline L. Abbott says, I'll definitely put a link to his website. I'll definitely put a link to his website in the description of this straight after the stream. Or if we get Jim in and we got casual speaking, then I should be able to update it on the fly. But I mean, this is hard enough with me just trying to talk to you while they're trying to fix this without me going off and just doing some configuration. Dark Knight, Casual Spaceman is awesome. Yes, he is. He really is. June Storm, Sleepy would claim Skipper is a liar. I think you're probably right. A bit like, who was it? Claimed that, was it to Armstrong? Claimed the moon landing was fake and got a smack in the teeth from, was it Armstrong or, I can't remember, it's one of those guys. Yeah, Dark. Never mind. The video was one about Riley, and then some stuff, some information provided by, and some information about James Skipper. I am. I can't even say it. You are more awesomest though. Thanks, philosopher. Let me have a listen, see how they're getting on. Sounds like we're still having some issues. We'll give them a bit longer. Aldrin. Yes, Buzz Aldrin. Thanks, guys. Sorry, it just slipped my mind. That was beautiful. I've watched that on a loop with him punching him out. Absolutely deserved. Shameful behaviour. These guys, I mean, especially the astronauts, they put their lives on the line. And we're not talking about, oh, there's a slight risk. It was a massive risk. Massive risk. But someone like Jim, who's a technical engineer, he put his life on the line. Okay, I guess they're pretty damn sure the suit's going to work. He hasn't got the risk of a rocket exploding or any of the 1001 risks of an actual space flight. But he was in vacuum at -300. If a suit fails, something goes wrong, his life was at risk. So yeah, when people call people like Jim liars, that's absolutely despicable. Ask if Jim met John Young. Well, listen, these questions are scrolling off the top. So if when we manage to get Jim in properly, which I hope we will, put questions in again. But I guess they're going to scroll off the top quick. So sorry if yours gets missed. We're only going to have a limited amount of time. The Shields show I think starts at 11:30, which really should be our end time. But we'll see. If we've only managed to get Jim in just before that, sorry, I might overrun the Shields. But hopefully, because I can hear them talking and I think it's getting clearer. Let's just... Any progress, guys? Okay. All right, I'll leave you to it. Leave you to it. Thank you. Yeah, they're still making progress, but not quite there yet. Caroline Abbott, hope we get into space before I hit 80. I would like to see a Mars shot. It'd be great to see a moon shot, but I would love to see a Mars shot. Because we're never going to see a shot, I guess, in any of our lifetimes to another star. Well, I mean, we might see the launch, but we're not going to see the arrival. And I'll be honest, I'm quite sad about that. But a Mars shot, that's well within the possibility. Yeah, June Storm, I hope that Skipper can make it as well. And Theoretic would like to punch some of the conspiracy people claiming the Challenger was a hoax. I remember watching that live on TV. Not just that it's a hoax, but have you seen those people claiming that the astronauts are still alive because someone who happens to have the same name happens to look a bit similar? It's the most lame-ass conspiracy, but it's it's a conspiracy that's directly insulting to those people who lost their lives for science and knowledge and furtherance of humanity. So what else have we got in here? Philip Cooper. John Young was the only astronaut to fly 4 types. Was he indeed? Yeah, but please, if we get Jim in, I'm not sure. I did ask him yesterday. I had to ask him, had he ever met Armstrong, Aldrin or Collins? And unfortunately he hadn't. Because you know that whole business of so many degrees of separation. I know colon, who knows thingamajig, who knows so and so, and that takes you to the President of Australia or something like the Prime Minister of Australia. Well, I was thinking, you know, I've spoken to Jim, who was at NASA then, and you know, had he spoken to Armstrong, just a couple of degrees of separation or whatever. It's really quite a weird thought. Archie Rush, Jim's a NASA hero. I remember watching the Apollo moon landings as a kid. Well, I missed the landings. I'm not quite that age. But yeah, he's a hero. They all are. Yeah, someone said about using Skype. Problem is, I don't use Skype on this machine. I have a particular reason not to. Columbia disintegrating during atmospheric entry. That was the one where they lost some of the ablative heat tiles, wasn't it? On launch, and then when they played back the launch, you could see the tiles falling off. And of course, beyond those tiles, you're just talking metal. Yeah, it would be an accelerating process breaking up. And I just hope that they weren't aware of what was happening. Irish Stew watched them land on the moon. That is so. Actually, I see Phil Blackett says NASA stopped paying you to shill. Check Discord. Let's have a quick look. Hello Discord, are we ready now? Have we got everything sorted? They're just doing a test. I'll leave them just a little longer. I think they're nearly there. It's a lot better. Phil Blacker, is he a NASA employee now? Well, I think there's quite a few of us shills in here. The tiles are ceramic. Yes, Sean. And have you seen the videos where they're heating them up to 2,000 degrees and then picking them up straight away? Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And Christmas, mother was good friends with Ron McNair, one of the astronauts on Challenger. Yeah, I'm not surprised it annoys you and upsets you. And 27, NASA committed to landing astronauts, including first woman and next man on the moon by 2024. And you think, wow, that's great. That's less than 5 years away. I really, okay, touchpad, sorry. Oh, where are we? Touchpad, let's see. Okay. Do I just post the link to that? I don't want to lose any screens. What Touch has done, I have seen this before on Creaky's channel, has given, this is a form, let's pop it in here. Someone else will have to grab this link and repost it every now and then, I think, or I'll grab it from you again, Touch, so you can submit questions for Jim. It will be at my discretion. So if there's anything from a hater, that's not going to get asked. I'm sure it won't be the case, but there's only going to be a small number of questions we'll be able to ask, I'm sure. Let's have a quick look back in here, go back to my channel. Right, how are we going, guys? Are we a bit better? Hello? Have we got Jim now? I'm going back to the chat, back to the stream. Okay, they're still struggling, I'm afraid, guys. It's better than it was, but not perfect. Yes, so Touchpad, you've given me that form, which is brilliant. People can submit their questions. Where do I see the answers? Because I've not used it before. Otherwise, they're all going to disappear down a hole. Perhaps you can DM me again in a minute. What else have we got? All right, DM from NASA Jim, who we've got here. They and them. Try changing server location. They and them. Can you DM Colon and let him know? And Touchpad. Okay. That's giving me the same form again. Well, we'll see. I'll request edit access. Sorry, people. What I'm just doing is trying to get in on these. Trying to get in on these questions. Touchpad, I've never used it before. I've asked for permissions. If it works, it works. If not, we'll just have to take questions from here because I've never used that before. Everything broadcasting okay. No super chats to read out right this minute. I'm not going to do that sex dance. Right, and we've still got these guys in here. I'm on mute. I'll see if I can hear what they're saying. He's still breaking up, I'm afraid. This is so annoying, so annoying. So let's see what we've got in here. What's all this Wits World? Don't know what that is. Oh, Wits World was 14 when Apollo 11 went to the moon. Yeah, well, I was only a couple of years old, so I was too young. And I think actually, of course, it was black and white TVs in that time, and I don't think we owned one. Not right then. John Skipper. Are you any relation, John Skipper? Because this discussion tonight is invitees only. So we got the casual spaceman. My moderator Colon is working as well to try and get James M. Skipper, retired senior NASA test engineer, to get his mic and sound working because there are issues. As I said, he's never used Discord before, and he only just bought the mic and maybe the headphones as well yesterday in order to join us. So I do apologise, everyone. Just bear with me a second. Guys, can you tell me what's happening, please? Okay, they're trying to get him in. They're trying to get him in via mobile phone instead, getting the app onto his son's phone So please hang on. We're trying a totally different route. So I am sorry for these delays, but I'm sure that you understand. It's a different set of technology, a very different set of technology than what Jim was working with. It's a different world. But of course, he'd been involved with NASA up until about 20 years ago. So just before, yes, 5-4, that's what we're going to try. I hope it doesn't cost him a packet. I guess if he's got Wi-Fi, it'll be free, won't it? Chrisma, I can't get something like that sorted out right now. It's all on Discord. Mobile phone, good idea. We'll give him a couple minutes. They're downloading the app and getting back in. I think his son may be helping him. Hugh Jars, how can you be old? How can you be older than me but have more hair? Yes, but mine's not gone grey. Fantarang, yeah. If push comes to shove, we will fix this and do it another day. We will. But it would be good to see. I'm a young puppy. Yeah, it would be good to get Jim on here. I think they're going to try and get him on via the phone. And Dark Knight wasn't born yet when Apollo went to the moon. Such a young boy. I did see your Discord message. I've forgotten what it was now. Touchpad, thank you. I've probably lost those links already. Sorry about this. I should have access. Okay, let's try and refresh. Well, I don't really know what I'm looking for. I'm still just see the form. I just see the form. What am I supposed to do? It's just the form with your name, your question, submit. So how do I see what the answers are? I'll try the your second link again, see if that gets me in there. Responses. Yeah, good man. Okay, yeah, I do have that. So that's brilliant. I will have to thank you for sorting that touch. Appreciated. And for everyone, Touchpad is one of my amazing patrons. Good man. Yeah, I got it touched. Thank you very much, sir. Excellent. I'll just make sure I don't delete the wrong thing. Right, let me see if I can get some sort of update on what is happening here on my server. Right, let me have a quick look because I think they're in the process. So let me jump in. Guys, I see that Jim's popped off. My understanding is he's trying to get in via an app on the phone. Excellent. Well, Casual, since you are one of the two guests tonight, can I bring you in and we'll have a little bit of a chat and see what's happening? 1 second, let me get you switched on. And there we go. Casual, you're live.
Hello, everybody. We're trying to get trying to get Jim sorted out, and we're gonna try one more thing where we're gonna get him on his Android phone, hopefully via Discord, and see if that will work as well. So apologies, everybody. We're working trying hard, but we can barely hear him at times. So sorry about this.
It's funny because I've listened every now and then, and then a sentence is as clear as a bell, and then it's all stretched out and Dalek-y, isn't it?
Yeah, who dies again? Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I suspect probably his internet connection is probably not that great. Also, I think he might be using an old laptop, possibly as well, which probably doesn't help.
I think he is using an old laptop. Yes. Yes. Well, hopefully his phone's good. Yeah, hopefully his phone's good and that he remembers to put it on Wi-Fi so that he doesn't get humongous data charges.
Yeah, but we were, as Mr. Sensible was saying last night, we had a brief chat with him last night. We were talking to him. The sound wasn't brilliant, but you could make out what he was saying, but it's just not quite working for us tonight for some reason.
Yes. Well, that's right. Sorry if you can hear any odd noises. I know my mic is super sensitive. Mrs. Sensible's just come and brought me a nice cup of tea. Thanks, Mrs. S.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely. Oh, well, Mrs. Casual Spaceman is in having a bath at the moment. So.
Okay. Does she need me to do her back?
No. That was probably too much information, actually.
Yeah, so we were having a good chat with Jim last night, weren't we?
Yeah, it was very nice. Yeah, for what we could, for what we could do to communicate. I had to drop out, as you know, for a little while because I wasn't feeling too great. So, yeah, it was very. He's a very, very interesting guy. He sounds that he was involved with pretty much, I think, from Project Gemini onwards. I think, wasn't he?
That's right, because of that suit. And I learned something new. I was talking earlier on while you were trying to help him, Casual. I was talking about how any mistakes I made in my video are my mistakes, and if someone points out something, then yeah, I'll learn from it. Well, one thing I did learn yesterday from Jim when we were talking, I already knew that the spacesuits, they don't operate at 14.7 psi. They take them down to between 3 and 4, and he said the lowest is 2.7 psi because below that you go unconscious.
Yeah.
But he was saying at that low pressure, if you're not careful, your lungs start to fill up with water.
Yeah, I heard that part before I left. Yes, really interesting. Yeah, never knew that.
And the thing I'd never thought of, he was saying, like when you're in a plane and your ears pop, well, at that low pressure, it's a lot worse. And of course, any other gas you got trapped in your body becomes problematical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually learned that as well because when the new spacesuits that NASA's come up with as well, during the presentation they said that they put the pressure inside the suit. I think in those ones they said between 6 and 8 psi. So I didn't honestly know. I just like you just assumed that perhaps they set them at 14.7 psi, which is sea level. But that apparently that puts more pressure on the joints and harder to move as well. So yeah, it kind of all makes sense, really.
Well, that's right. I mean, I already knew they operated at a lower pressure. I didn't realise it was that low, and I didn't realise that it caused physical. They were having to deal with physical issues. Obviously, the oxygen level in the mix, but the pressure being that low caused physiological difficulties.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he was actually he was inside the spacesuits testing it as well, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
There was that photo on. Let me see if I can get the photo up. I'll call it up on the screen. What else did he cover last night? Because he covered quite a few things. It was a fascinating chat, wasn't it?
Yeah, he mentioned as well that was it Ed White apparently was working with him on the space.
Ken Mattingly,
wasn't he?
Ken Mattingly.
Oh, Ken Mattingly. That's it. Sorry, the other. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't Ed White. Ken Mattingly was working on the spacesuits, and apparently he was working so hard inside the spacesuit in the pressure chamber. Apparently he got big blisters on his feet or something like that. And when they took the spacesuit off, his feet were covered in blood.
Beg your pardon. I thought you were talking about someone else. That wouldn't be Mattingly.
Who's he talking about?
I think you're right. I think you're right with Ed.
Maybe it is Ed White. Yeah. I mean, he was saying those guys are really tough. He was saying so. Yeah. But apparently it was nothing to him. Apparently, so he just carried on.
Yeah, because I think that the issue is that if they started showing any signs of weakness or problems, they'd be bounced off. That's it. Game over.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they're going to push the envelope as far as they can.
I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, if you look back at the film, The Right Stuff, I don't know if you've seen it, or I'm sure a lot of your audience probably watched it as well. I mean, they came from a breed of people that, they were military pilots, test pilots, so they were pretty tough and robust people anyway. So that's the sort of background they came from. It wasn't really until Apollo 17 when you had Snr was the first non-pilot or non-military pilot that actually went on to, went on the Apollo missions. He was the only one, and actually a lot of those guys weren't very happy with having a scientist being one of the men to land on the moon. It should have been another test pilot or another military pilot. But there it goes. But they definitely were tough guys.
What was that name you gave?
Was it Cernan? I might have getting my names mixed up.
Are you talking the geologist? Because only one geologist has been to the moon, hasn't
Yeah.
he? Is that
Yeah,
the
that's
guy?
right. Yes. Yeah, Cernan. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Cernan. I might have gotten the name mixed up. Like I said, I'm not 100% feeling great, so let's have got my names mixed up. But Apollo 17, yeah, Cernan, he was a geologist. Yeah, he was a scientist. He wasn't.
Just going to swap this over so that the image of Jim is on the screen. Please, because I'm doing this on the fly, please people shout in the chat if I've accidentally cut the sound off. Here we go. Hopefully everyone can still see us. What I'm attempting to show Casual is the photo. Oh, have we got Jim back here?
I think I'm back.
At last!
Oh, nice and clear.
But we are getting some feedback from someone.
Okay, thank you, Lewis.
How are you, Jim?
Yeah, well, I'm doing fine. It's nice to have young sons who are familiar with all of this new formats.
Oh, well, we can hear you nice and clear. You're 5x5 now.
Yeah, okay.
What we'll do is the feedback we'll just have to live with because we don't want to mess it around anymore.
You're getting the feedback from your voice into my microphone. Is that it?
Well, you seem nice and clear, Jim.
Okay. And you're very loud. I've turned the volume way down.
Yes, because I think what's happening is my sound is actually feeding back through yours because I can see you lit up as though you're speaking.
Oh, we can live with that.
Yeah, well, I can. It works okay from this end.
Well, as long as you're all right, Jim. So, I already have, if I can ask this first, Jim, I have a question for you.
He seems to come off again. I don't know where he's
going. Oh, is he? Oh, he's dropped out. Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. He was there and then he's disappeared again. But he was crystal clear then.
Yes. Adam and Jen, yeah, you're right. The echo is from Jim's end. I think when we're speaking, it's playing through his phone, and the Discord app on his phone is picking up my voice and Casual's voice and then feeding it back to us, which is a shame. Yeah. And Stuck said that Jim was actually the clearest. Absolutely right. Nine has said turn off his PC speakers. We'll have to make sure that he hasn't got them on, but that's a good point, just in case he's still got that on as well.
Yeah, and I don't think he has, because we were just saying earlier on, if you can just switch that down, turn all that down, turn all that off, and then just go onto your phone. But yeah, that was really clear.
Yes.
A little while, but we just lost.
Well, Casual, Apollo 17 and a couple of other. Sorry, 27, 47, 27, and a couple. Oh, hello, Jim.
Hello.
Oh, you're back again. We lost you there for a bit.
Yes, just while putting this thing to the side of my face, I touched the disconnect right there at the middle of the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. Well, what's going on?
Well, for a start, we got you nice and clear. And there's a lot of excited people here, Jim. How are you, first of all? Have you had a good day?
I've had a great day. This has been very frustrating, though.
Never mind. Never mind.
Try to use an old laptop and a cheap headset microphone.
But if it does the job.
But other than that, yeah.
Well, Jim, I'm sure that Casual has, in fact, I know Casual has some things he wants to ask you about. But I've had a question submitted by one of the people who are watching, a guy called 9 O'Clock Hero. And he would like to ask you, regarding the Apollo 13, when they had the air filter issue, how many people were involved in solving that air cleaner problem? Do you know?
Well, I don't know an exact number. Typically, when we did a vacuum chamber run of that type, besides having a couple of crewmen in the chamber,
yeah,
or maybe we had 3, we'd have a dozen folks outside, but the higher levels of our organization, could have had 10, 20, 30, 100 people.
To solve a problem?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a serious problem. And that one issue was just part of the problem. They had to worry about power, and I don't know, uh, the issue with the cold. The guys nearly froze to death. Of course, we didn't know what was going on because uh, uh, you didn't get that much feedback down the line.
Yeah. So you just knew there was a problem with the filters and not knowing about,
Yes,
not knowing about
uh,
all the issues with them having to switch off heaters and things like that because they had a severe lack of power, didn't they?
that's right. And we concentrated on doing they're not, most people, when you say filter, will think of filtering particles out of
Yes.
the air. But this is a chemical absorbent that absorbs carbon dioxide.
That's right. And was it
Uh,
that the filters on the LEM were different shaped to the filters on the command module? Something like that, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Now, a guy who's a regular on my channel was actually asked a question, which I know I did ask you yesterday, Jim, but he's asking how accurate was the movie Apollo 13 regarding those issues?
It got the basic parts right, basic plot. I think I mentioned to you that I believe in the movie they showed Ken Mattingly, the astronaut who was scrubbed from that flight, going over a table full of components and picking out things that might work.
Yes.
That probably represented, 6 or 8 dozen guys over several days coming up with that rather than throwing a bunch of stuff on a table and having one man pick through it. But
Right.
that
Okay.
was the biggest thing that I recall from the movie.
Yeah. Well, Casual, please, you're here. Go ahead.
Well, I'm glad we got you working, Jim. And then, like I said, it's a real privilege to actually speak to a real bona fide NASA engineer, particularly from that era as well. I mean, I've got a keen interest in particularly with the Apollo program, all the way through really, and of course Gemini and Mercury before that as well. But I'm quite interested as well is when you heard Kennedy's now famous speech, about going to the moon before the century is out. What were your feelings at the time? Did you think it was really possible? Did you think was there any doubt that would actually make it before the end of the decade, or what were your thoughts about that when you heard that proposition by Kennedy?
I believe I was at university when he gave that speech in Arkansas. We didn't have TV, we didn't have radio. Seriously, I didn't have news magazines. So, but it goes back even before that, because the people, when I was a teenager, there were people who said there's no way to go to the moon. God would have put us up there if he had wanted us to go to the moon, or we would crack the firmament. I was around people in the hills of Arkansas who still held with the what they considered the proper interpretation of the description of the universe in the Bible.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of folks who just scoffed at the very idea that that could be done.
And of course, Jim, there's plenty of those idiots now. In fact, a chap on the chat has just asked me to ask you a question to try and shut up flat earthers. Okay, I don't know if you have heard the quote from, it was someone from NASA who's basically saying, well, yeah, we've lost the technology to go to the moon now, and so flat earthers are saying, see, we can't go to the moon. Do you have any comment about that? And I guess, do you have any comment about flat earthers in general, Jim?
Well, as far as flat earthers go, it's hard to understand how they could ignore all the knowledge we have about the Earth and the universe and space and everything, how they could ignore the whole thing and then go for a kind of a crackpot idea.
Yes.
As far as the technology goes, you remember that because of budget constraints with the United States and then the NASA program, they cut off a couple of at least one mission to the moon.
Yeah.
To save money. And let's see, I believe the story is that Chris Kraft and I just had his name in mind, Christopher Kraft, Gilruth, the two prime center leaders back at that time, were at a party and they stepped outside and looked up at the moon and they said, one of these days, they're going to find out that it's not so easy to get to the moon. I don't know if that's been quoted anywhere. I suspect it is. You might be able to do a search and track that down.
Okay.
But I thought at the time, yes, it was very hard, but, we made it look easy from the viewpoint of the people who weren't involved as closely as I was. So, yeah, it's going to be hard to do it again.
Yeah.
But of course, right now we don't have Saturn V's or the equivalent. We don't have the equivalent of a lander and so on. So it's all got to be developed again. And of course, there's no point in launching exactly what was around then because all the technology's moved on.
Well, yes, yeah. There may actually be some old Saturn V's that could be refurbished, but no point in trying to do that. That'd be like trying to take a 50-year-old automobile and say, oh, we'll make a trip in this thing and we'll refurbish it and head off.
And as I understand it, yeah, and as I understand it as well, particularly with the engineers that developed the F1 engines for the Saturn V, well, in fact, all the stages as well, was that I know they had a lot of trouble with the engines and trying to get them to actually work properly and effectively. Is that while they were actually, these individual engineers were building these engines, they started to understand the little fallboys of the little nicks and crannies of the engines and things like that, and they made little minor improvements, and not all of it was actually documented. So unfortunately, all those guys have all passed on now, or they've disappeared, and those skills have died. And we don't have the knowledge, or quite the knowledge, to actually replicate exactly those engines that lifted off the Saturn V. Would that be quite an accurate thing, do you think? Or I'm just going by what people have told me. Do you think that's true?
Well, yes, I agree with you that we often made little changes that weren't documented. You got it to work and then moved on. And assumed, I guess, if someone else came later, they could do the same thing. But it's I've really been impressed with what the private industry has been doing with those rocket launches, especially with the ability to return them and land them again.
On the end, it's absolutely stunning, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's amazing to see. Like, they brought two boosters back and they landed simultaneously, basically.
I know.
But still, those engines are probably far from what's needed to get a crew back to the moon.
Yeah,
and I didn't work with any of the rocket engines or the launches or the.
No, I know you didn't. No,
that sort of thing, but it's just an interest.
Well, funny if that was a private company that developed the engines, I think, for the Saturn V. That was Rocketdyne, if I remember rightly, I think, wasn't
it? Was it?
Maybe.
Was this someone else?
Most of the most of the work was done by private contractors.
Yeah.
The spacesuit, I've forgotten which one. I guess the Apollo suit was made by. A casual spaceman probably knows who, I've forgotten, but they made corsets and underwear for women.
Grunnen or Grundon?
Well, there
Grumman.
was some Grumman.
Northbrook Grumman.
That's the one I'm thinking. Now they made the. Did they make the lander or the
The
rocket?
limb, right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Jim, someone has asked. Captain Phobos has asked, "Do you, and I guess by extension, did other people in NASA, but do you find the conspiracy questions around Apollo and the moon landings? Do you find it insulting or laughable or what else?"
I would find it laughable. It isn't really funny. It's hard to imagine anyone could believe, and we were just talking at lunch about that idea, that uh, thousands of people could all be in on something and not let it leak
Yeah.
out to the public. Well, it would be nearly all the public in on this grand conspiracy.
Oh, Jim, you know what? You're somebody after my own heart. That's something I've been saying for quite a while, and I'm glad you said that. I really am. That's absolutely my thoughts. Yeah, I mean the amount of people that would have had to be involved in this conspiracy would have been literally. I've spoke to several people, and it's been estimated from anything from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of people that would have had to be involved in the conspiracy to hide this.
I'm sure that I
And
heard this around 500,000 people were involved to a greater or lesser extent with the shot to the moon. Now, it could be someone who's just making screws, but around 500,000 people.
I don't know, but
No.
it's certainly a large number. And then that's just for the United States program.
Yep.
Russia had a great manned program going, and then the European Space Agency in China, and who else has done so much?
Japanese.
Yeah, all during this time,
Jim,
they'd all have to be in this weird pretend.
Jim, I think I saw on your website, did you have or do some work with regard to the Russian Mir spacesuits?
Yes, the Orlan, they're using it on the space station,
Yeah.
along with the space shuttle spacesuits that are still being used after all these years. Right, in fact, I was in Moscow when I got word that they were giving retirement bonuses for men in my position.
Yes.
Oh.
But I was in Moscow to observe a vacuum chamber test with an Orlan suit that had been returned from the Mir and refurbished. Normally, they would just scrap them. They'd dump them out and let them burn up on reentry. They had a good spacesuit, but it wasn't built to last.
Yes.
But anyway, that I was sent over there in my position as someone who had been involved with our manned spacesuit vacuum chamber testing for many years. And they basically said, if you think they're doing it the right way, we'll go along with it. They didn't have the paper trail and all the paperwork that goes with everything that we do to prove that it has met all the requirements and is safe to use.
Yeah.
So, and I was with a group. I didn't go by myself, but they depended on what the group of us said about allowing that suit to come and be tested here at the Johnson Space Center.
Well, Jim, you have spoken with the guy, Colon, my moderator, who's been helping you last night and tonight.
Yes.
I was talking with him earlier, and he made this comment, and I grabbed it to read out to you, because he wasn't saying this to you. He was just talking about this. And if you'll forgive it, a couple of bits of the language are not language you'd read out in church. But he said, "It makes you know flat earth bullshit isn't worth a shitty piece of toilet paper when you have guys like Jim in the world and what they did to help get things off the ground. I sympathise with him as an engineer. You get the job ready, then stand back and let someone else get the credit. you just feel proud doing your part. That was a quote from Colon earlier, and I think he's absolutely right. Isn't that nice?
Yes, I appreciate that thought.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, every employee there at the Johnson Space Center was proud of the work we were doing and what we were helping to be accomplished during all those programs, all the way from Mercury. I wasn't there during the Mercury program,
So what was
but
your
on
first,
through.
Gemini?
Yes, I started to work on June 10th of 1963, and the final Mercury flight had returned toward the end of May of 63, just a couple of weeks before I started work.
Yes.
I think Gordon Cooper was a long, I don't know, a week or more in orbit in that tiny little Mercury capsule.
Did you ever did you ever get to sit in one of the capsules, either Apollo or whatever, just to have a look inside?
Well, not a real one.
No.
We had the mock-ups. Let's see, what was a boilerplate model. These things were made of boilerplate
Yeah.
so that you could have a reduced pressure inside, say 5 psi cabin pressure, and
Yeah.
it'd be sitting at ambient at 14.7 without collapsing in on itself.
Right.
So the external shell was made of boilerplate. You can look that up if it's not familiar to you. Then the inside was configured to be, had the life support system and the seats and the controls. So we had one for Mercury and one for Gemini, and I have some pictures of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I put them on my website or not, but and I got lost. You know, I'm old.
Jim.
Over 50 years ago.
Yeah. Jim, do you mind if I ask? Because a couple of people have asked. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
78.
78.
And when you're this old, you're kind of like a little kid who says, I'm 6, but 6.5, almost 7. I'm almost 79.
Well,
good,
you
good for
you sound great. You sound great for 78. I've got to say. I hope I sound anything like you and enthusiastic as you when I'm that age.
I hope I'm still alive.
Well, I hope so too. And this is off the subject I know that your listeners are interested in. But when I was a child, most of the people I knew were dying at about 65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure when I was born, how old I was, and by the time I got to 65, would the century have changed or not?
Mm.
And of course, this is long past the change in the century.
Yeah.
So I hope I have a few more years.
Absolutely. And Jim, I saw on your website a photo of you sat amongst your family. I think it was taken 2004, was it? Lovely
Yes,
picture.
that's right.
Lovely picture. How many kids,
you.
grandkids, great grandkids maybe? How many have you got?
Well, no great grandkids. We have most of those are step grandchildren. We have one grandson who was not in that photo with us.
Yes.
It's the way relationships work out. And in this case, I was a stepson and had lots of step grandsons.
Jim, I was going to ask you, and someone else has just happened to ask. It's totally up to you. Are you agreeable to me posting a link to your website?
Yes.
Okay.
I certainly am. When I first put that online, Google would bring it up in nearly every search I made for those topics. But now it's buried under the ads and the big websites.
Yeah, that does happen.
Well, if I got this right, Jim, just before I post it, is it jamesmskipper.us?
Yes.
There we go. That's posted. And if I may, I'd just like to read out. I've had a couple of messages where people make a donation to have a message read out. Mr. Marcus Dresden donated me $10 US. Apparently it's his second donation. What happened to the first? Anyway, cheers, Mr. Sensible. And Mr. Victory, who is a regular on my channel, has sent a message for also for $10 saying, "This is your best show ever." And that's despite all the glitches we had, James. I think people are just so pleased. I don't mean this in any way disrespectful, but you are sort of living history. You know, I cannot believe I'm talking to someone who was involved at the level you were involved with Gemini, with Apollo. It's just, I'm amazed.
Well, let me make a comment about that.
Yeah.
All of you probably by now have seen the video of the guy whose spacesuit pressure was lost. He fell over backwards. Somebody jumped in and rescued him. Have you seen that?
I'm not sure. What about you, Casual?
I'm not sure. You might have to remind me. I'm not quite sure.
Well, I hear people say that because of that one test, there were never any manned spacesuit testing at the Space Center.
Right.
We were going into the development of the Apollo spacesuit. One of our test directors had volunteered to be the test subject, and the suit hose came off the facility supply system, and he lost suit pressure in a matter of 30 seconds and was unconscious.
Yeah.
Fell over backwards, and the fellow who was serving as test director declared an immediate emergency repress, and the guy survived. Now, I thought everybody had seen that.
Ah, yes. Now you come to mention it. Now, yes, I do now.
Okay. I don't see that fellow very often, but he went on for a long career. In fact, he was the senior test director before I was. He taught all of us the best way to deal with astronauts and test subjects, test procedures, test requesters. He is more private than I am, but occasionally you can get him to talk. So my point is that I'm not the only one, but I'm probably the one who's easiest to get in touch with. All three of the people who were directly involved in that suit pressure loss test are still living.
Yes.
And again, I don't see them that often, but they're still around.
So can I ask you then, Skip, what made you agree to talk with me here?
Well, first of all, I've enjoyed your approach to debunking the flat Earth issues. It's not that you're debunking them, but you bring in the science and the logic.
And cheese sometimes.
And cheese, right. to explain the errors of their ways. And you do it in such a good fashion. I felt like writing to you. You had a good question for me as far as the vacuum chamber strength and what it takes to, the fact that it doesn't take concrete.
Yes.
to 14.7 isn't a really big pressure.
No.
So yeah, that was it. And of course, trying to get all this audio connection lined up with the old equipment that I had was a little bit of a challenge. But my sons came over; they wanted to see what was going on, and
I think we see one of your sons, John, in the chat. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for all your help. Really appreciate getting James in here tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll reiterate that.
Yeah, they're sitting out in the yard. Would you believe it's more than 70 degrees here?
It's about 1 here.
Yeah, one centigrade here.
Oh, okay.
James, I just want to ask you a question as well, if I may. You mentioned earlier on that you were fascinated with the commercial program at the moment, where it's particularly with SpaceX, where with reusability and things like that. What do you think of how NASA's approaching things at the moment with the commercial space program? Do you think it's the way forward to getting men back on boots back on the moon and going on to Mars? Do you think it's the best way to go, or what do you think generally about the commercial program?
I agree that it's probably the way to go. When I was young, I thought the NASA engineers and scientists were the top, and I'm not saying that they're any different now, but there was a little bit of pride of working with NASA. But these fellows have been able to put so much of their own money into it that NASA no longer has in its budget, that it's a big help. And I think a combination of all of it is going to make it work again. The Orion, you're familiar with the Orion capsule that they're making? It looked like the Apollo capsule, but it holds 7.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that. Yep.
Me too.
Okay. I believe they started working on that before I retired, a little bit before I retired.
Wow.
And they've just been dragging along as our government here changes priorities.
Yeah.
It has managed to stay they just shifted from one project to another, and it's still going. So it's probably what they will end up going to the moon with, but the boosters, I guess, are still a big question.
Yeah, the SLS, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Although one of the private launchers, whatever they're coming up with, might be able to get to the space station, get the Orion up to the space station.
Well, I mean, you've actually got, I don't know if you know about SpaceX and the development of Dragon, which is near enough at the end of its development. They're going to hopefully, since the shuttle going to be bringing astronauts from American soil to the ISS shortly. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah. Probably not as aware as you are of the current status.
Yeah, the Falcon 9, which, as you know, is the reusable, is actually capable of launching that Dragon spacecraft to the ISS. And in fact, some are actually saying that they think that Falcon could potentially land a small craft, or at least take a small craft to the orbit of the moon, at least anyway as well. So, which is also interesting. So it's good that I think that people like SpaceX and Boeing are working alongside NASA. But yeah,
right, and it probably is going to take everybody. I think an orbit of the moon would, if it can be done in the next couple of years, would be another great accomplishment. You remember Apollo 8?
Yeah,
was that figure 8? Actually, it wasn't a figure 8, but it looped around the moon and came back like the old Jules Verne novel about the journey to the moon.
Yeah, that's right. And do you think NASA could achieve getting men boots back on the moon by 2024 that they've declared they're going to do? Do you think they could achieve that by 2024? I mean, that's what we're looking at, 5 years away.
This is just based on my experience with the government work here. If they set the goal at 2024, maybe they can make it by 2028. If they leave the goal at 2028, it'll probably be 2030 or 32.
But then
I hope I live long enough for that.
But then look at Kennedy's getting men on the moon before the decade is out.
They put, what was it, close to 5% of the U.S. budget. Somebody probably knows that. It's less than 1% now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
It takes a lot of money because when you're trying to do things in a hurry, you go down the wrong path and you have to back up and try again. You have a failure, you back up and try again. And it takes a lot of money to do it that way. If you just slowly go along and check things out carefully, most of the money goes into salaries.
Yes.
So the longer you have people working on a project, of course, the more the cost goes up. But likewise, if you're trying to do it in a hurry, you need to have a lot of people on hand. So that's why I can't find the proof. I think I wrote somewhere back when the second President Bush said they'd terminate the shuttle flights. I said it'll be 2020 before we have capability of putting men back in space.
Yeah.
Well, then you're absolutely right. You predicted correctly. Then. Absolutely right.
Yes, I have no proof of it. It frustrates. The only thing I have is that I've told people that over the years that was my thought. Okay, so 2024, I don't think it's going to work. It would be nice.
I predicted 2026 personally, just because of mostly because of SLS. I think the actual capsule itself is pretty much, it's almost, well, it's not done, but it's fully developed.
Right.
But SLS has been delayed so much, and they haven't really done any testing on it at all at the moment. You can do a certain amount of testing obviously on the ground and stuff like that, but I don't know. I'm just I think mostly I don't think we'll get there until 2026 because of the delays of SLS, and also that's the gateway, the space station that they're going to build, that's going to orbit the moon as well. I mean, it's that's a long way from in development at the moment as well. So yeah, I agree with you, but I'm probably going to be a little bit more optimistic, say 2026 rather than 2028. But
Okay.
I'll be happy to be proved wrong. I'd be more than happy to be proved wrong.
But whichever.
Well, yes.
Sorry, James. Sorry.
Yeah. Either way, 24 or 26 make me happy. And I do believe that if they weren't setting a goal for 24, they wouldn't be making 26.
Yeah, true.
But at least if they're setting a goal and working towards it, that's got to be good, rather than just, oh, no, we won't bother, or yeah, we'll do it sometime. If you've got a deadline, even if you miss it, you're going to be most of the way there, I'm sure.
Right.
I've had another chat message come in from a guy called 3am Paranormale e Horror, who super chatted €2 saying, best show ever, respect from Italy, and it's 15 degrees there.
15 degrees C.
It would be, yeah. We use real money over here, Jim.
Oh, just a second. My son said maybe I need to plug my phone into the power before it goes dead. But
that's a good idea,
yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully we don't lose Jim.
Okay, but go on. No, I'm still here.
Good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, someone's actually commented that deadlines are a good thing. That's right. It's something to aim for if you're not aiming for anything. If you're not shooting for the stars, haha.
Mm-hmm.
There was someone else asked me something to ask you.
What?
Do you see, or do you foresee NASA more permanently?
Okay, am I still on?
Yes, you're still on, Jim. Can you hear me?
No, he's got his headphones muted, I think.
Oh
yeah,
dear.
He's got the headphone mute button slipped on. I don't know how we can tell. He probably can't hear us.
No, he can't. Hello, Jim. Hello, Jim. Headphones. Oh no. Jim, we can see you're still there, but you've got your headphones on mute, so you can't hear us.
I've just messaged him.
Oh, good.
hopefully we'll get him back again.
Voice check. Am I still connected?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
Yes, Jim. Yes, Jim. But you can't hear us. Yes, Jim, please find the button. Jim, we are still here. You're still here. Sorry, everyone. Hopefully we'll get this straightened out in a minute. Absolutely loving this.
Well, I may touch something with my fingers. Text channel, fireside chat.
Go on, Jim. Work the problem. Yeah, John.
I've messaged him a couple of times.
Okay, and John Skipper, I can see Colon's asking, can you help your dad? His headphones are muted.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, hello, Jim.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you
you're
hear us
back
now?
again.
Can you hear us, Jim?
Hello. Hello.
Can you hear us, Jim?
Jim. Well, I'm sure we'll get him back again any minute. Really hope so. As you can see, he is the most fascinating guy. Now, yesterday, Casual was dead on his feet with an illness, and I was worried that Casual wouldn't even be able to get on there, but we wanted just to do a quick test to make sure he could get into the relevant room, and we then got Jim in, and Casual just stayed. He fought through it until he fell. I think you must have collapsed.
Well, no, I think I was just having a bad moment. I was having the shakes and the sweats, I think, and I had a high temperature at that point, so I had to drop out. But I'm feeling okay at the moment. I'm still okay at the moment.
But Jim's not one to miss, is he?
No, not picking up it.
Hello, Jim. I think he's walked out the room. I think I just heard a door go. Hello.
Hello.
And Dark, you're right. I am in contact with Jim via email anyway. So we will try another time. Perhaps if we can have someone else with him to aid him to make sure all the connections and stuff are done. But it seemed the fitting time to have him on here straight after this Riley thing, all about vacuums, because that's exactly what Jim dealt with throughout his working life.
We're getting back. Oh, hope so. And if not, not to worry. I mean, it's coming on to 10:07. So.
Hello, Jim. Hello. He disconnected and reconnected. Right, I read something. Someone said, where was it? About technology. We could land on the moon again tomorrow. The technology is there, but it's all about the money. Well, money is obviously a major thing, but we'd still have to build a lander. They wouldn't build one the same. We certainly wouldn't use the... well, there wasn't electronic computing there, was there, Cash?
Well, there was, but it was just very different. That's all. The technology was very, very different.
I presume it was valves.
No, it was. It was digital computers, but it was like a hardwired sort of system.
Right.
So they didn't just have more than one computer. They had 3 or 4, I think, between the LIM and the command module, etc. All doing different things, and one as a standby, as it were.
Hello, is that you back, Jim?
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. Is that John?
Yeah, that's John.
Hello, John. Hi, Jim again.
Okay, they've gone outside. They're sitting in the lawn chairs with their smartphones, so they won't interfere and get feedback in.
Oh, I'll give them a wave. Really appreciate all their help. Now, where were we? Jim, we were just talking about the computers they had. Do you know anything about it?
For Apollo, we were talking about the Apollo computers.
I probably don't know anything that you fellas don't know. Yeah.
I was just saying, really, the computers that they used were digital computers, but they were just very different. They were hardwired. I don't know how much you know about them, as we were just talking about.
I don't know. I've heard that they had less computing power than some of the little handheld calculators would have now.
Yeah.
We didn't have personal computers.
No.
Our system had a central data recording computer that could be hooked up to the test instrumentation, and it would record the information digitally. It would convert from analog to digital, and then put it on magnetic tape, and that could be taken to the center-wide computer facility.
Well,
okay, Jim, go ahead.
Someone had asked a question, and unfortunately you dropped out just at the time. Do you foresee NASA permanently merging with private contractors for future missions?
Already do.
What was the comment there?
Do you foresee
them
merging? Merging, yes.
Okay, someone else made a comment right at the end of yours.
Yeah, that was me. I said they already do.
In that sense, let me tell you, at least from the contractor side that I was involved with, it was all civil service when I started to work. And the first thing that was contracted out was the technical support. Then the data and instrumentation support was contracted out. Then documentation. And so at one point there were probably more contract employees in our building than there were civil servants. And because they were on contract, it was possible for the government, for NASA, to say that their contract was over whenever it was due to be over, and they were going to look for someone new. And those employees would sometimes be lucky to get a job with a new contractor. So for that period of time, it was kind of an awkward system, because the people that were working with us would sort of come and go depending on who had the contract at the time. Now, they tell me, they try to treat civil service and contractors just the same. They work together and can't tell the difference between one and the other. It's still an odd way of doing business, I think, but we do need to have contract support certainly for things that are projects that are a short period of time and then disappear. You don't have a whole host of civil service employees sitting around waiting for the next contract to come along, or next program to come along. That probably wasn't a good answer, but that's how I see it.
No, that's a very good answer. And actually, it leads me on to a question I was going to ask you anyway. Was one of the things that I've always imagined as a kid is finally getting human beings to land on Mars. And over the years, I've thought about how that would actually happen. And I remember seeing a movie stroke documentary, and the way they did it was they involved lots of commercial companies as well as governments from around the world, and they formed this kind of almost like an agency that actually built this whole mission to actually land humans on the Mars. And I think that's probably going to end up doing what we'll actually end up doing. Is it involved lots of different countries, lots of different commercial companies forming a group and then getting humans on Mars? Do you think that would be the way forward? Do you think, or?
Yes, probably. And the International Space Station, I guess, was primarily built by the U.S., but look how many other countries and companies were involved in putting the space station up.
Right.
Speaking of Mars, let me tell you guys something, because I worked on this project after I retired. They hired me back. It's a long story, but I've worked part-time a while. Do you realize that the cooling system in the Apollo and shuttle spacesuits, the backpacks, life support systems, required vacuum to operate?
I didn't know that.
Using a water sublimator.
I did see something, I think, on your website or via one of the pages you gave me.
Okay, it could have been. Well, it turns out, you talk about atmospheric pressure here on Earth, and you go up and you're at a vacuum. If you go to Mars, the Mars atmosphere is thin and, nothing like what we have here on Earth. But even though it's thin, there's enough pressure to mean that a sublimator can't work properly there. So they're working on water evaporative cooling systems. And that was one of the last projects I helped with after I retired. I don't know where that has gone.
For future missions to Mars?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Jim, if you had the opportunity to go up into orbit or to go to the space station or the moon or Mars, would you take it?
Wouldn't we all?
Good for you.
I thought at one time that in addition, they started with fighter pilots and people with advanced degrees. I said, one of these days they're going to need just an ordinary engineer and technician up in space. But that didn't come along in time for me to get in on it.
Yeah.
Well, someone has asked, Jim, do you have any funny anecdotes you can tell us?
Or funny stories?
We used to have a Dummy of the Year award, but let me tell you this one. Because I know it's true, and some of those dummy awards may have been made up. If you're mostly NASA fans in this group,
Probably.
you'll know something about the first guy in orbit wasn't a guy from the U.S. The first guy to do an EVA wasn't a guy from the U.S. Anybody know who the first woman to do an EVA was?
Well, let's Kaz, before you answer, let's see if anyone in the chat comes up with that. The first woman to EVA.
I can't remember the top of my head. I remember reading about it probably a couple of months ago, but the name escapes me, and I'm not going to cheat by Googling it.
Well,
Do you know where she might have come from?
Yeah, well, don't tell us, Jim. Let's see if anyone out there knows the answer. We'll give them a minute. And it's quite interesting you say they've got a Dummy of the Year award, because that's pretty much what we've got here in the Flat Earth debunking community. And Anthony Riley is close for a winner.
Except it's not called Dumb of the Year, it's called something else.
Yes, but he tries, but he misses the point of what he's doing, I think. With his experiments and the definitions of what science is and that sort of thing. You don't work with that.
Well, Jim,
Okay, did anyone come up with an answer?
they just have philosopher of nonsense has suggested Svetlana Savitskaya.
That's right, if I'm not mistaken.
And Russian.
Also, yes, I believe she was the first woman to make 2 trips into space.
Yeah, and several other people have come up with the same answer as well. Philip
Yeah.
Cooper and Thud Thud. And philosophers added some additional, saying it was Salyut 7 in 1984.
Okay, I can't guarantee that, but I'm pretty sure they're right. All right. Kathy Sullivan was one of our first female astronauts to prepare and train for EVA, and she worked very hard at it. So I believe that on the flight where she was to make the first female EVA, Sally Ride was going to go along and be the first woman to fly into space twice. So the 2 of them were going to go. And that was announced. You know, the United States nearly always announces these in advance. Well, Russia obviously heard that and sent their woman who had been in space before to make a second. She would be the first to make 2 flights into space, the first woman, and she did an EVA. So she got both of those records. And Kathy Sullivan was a little bit miffed, and she said to me personally when I asked about it, I said, we hated the fact you didn't become first. She said, well, if we just didn't announce everything before we do it, maybe we could make one of those first sometime.
Good point.
So that's a little bit of trivia. And she's now writing. She went along with Bruce McCandless for the contingency of the Hubble telescope launch. They didn't have to do anything, but they were prepared and were ready in their spacesuits in case they had to rush outside and help get it free of the shuttle. Okay, so she did that. Next April will be the 30th anniversary of that mission, and she's writing a book, so I'll put in a plug for her book.
Absolutely. I'll find out the details from you afterwards, Jim, and we'll put a link to that book in the description.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet, but she did talk to me about some of the training runs that she couldn't remember the details of. So, but that's the plan. It's supposed to be out in time for the 30th anniversary.
Okay. Just as an aside, since we've mentioned Anthony Riley, Jim, I would love it because I can record this and use it again. Mr. Jim Skipper, ex-senior NASA test engineer. What do you think of Sleeping Warrior, Anthony Riley?
You know, that's a difficult question. We were taught not to say. The rule was if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything. But
that's fair enough.
I looked at his video of doing the floating egg experiment.
Yes.
And he talked all about having one dependent variable or whatever.
Yep.
Okay, and of course gravity is probably the variable that he totally forgot about. Yeah. He needs to do that same experiment. I've seen other videos showing it where the tube that the egg is in is placed horizontally, and see which end of the tube the egg goes to. So he needs to think more about his experiments before he comes to such a firm, incorrect conclusion like he did.
Not only that, I mean, he was using a device that he knew nothing about and admitted that he knew nothing about. And also he said it was producing figures that were meaningless to him, yet he was using that as part of his experiment. What do you think of that, Maloney?
Yeah, I had forgotten that. He was measuring the concentration of the solution and calling it the density, I believe.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Is that what he was doing?
A TDS meter, a total dissolved solids meter.
Right. It's tricky to do a test like that and get good results, and you probably need to do it more than one time and change a few things too.
Yeah.
He claimed changing the salt solution was the variable but he was just off track.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as someone said in the chat, Jim, with your very clever avoidance of you saying anything nasty, what a gent.
Well, thank you. But then I did kind of say he was doing a dumb experiment. So.
Oh dear. So in your looking around at these flat earthers, is there anyone that you feel should be nominated as, let's call it Dummy of the Year?
You can't.
If you don't want to answer, that's fine.
No, it's my wife. She says Trump.
Oh, that's excellent.
No, there are several who are, I would say, tie for Dummy of the Year.
Okay.
I haven't followed it closely enough to be able to name all of them, but yeah.
That's absolutely fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
But I hope you don't mind. At some point, I'll snip out that bit of the video and I'll perhaps give it to Anthony.
Okay. Now, Anthony is the one who really yells and carries on when people dispute him in debates.
No, I think you might be
Right?
thinking now of Nathan Oakley.
Well, I believe he does too. Is he the one from, what does he go by?
Just as Nathan Oakley.
Okay. Well, then there's Phuket Word.
Yes.
All right.
What
So
do
you see, I don't know them all that well to be able to distinguish one from the other.
Phuket Word is not particularly difficult to debunk, really, because he just ignores a whole load of different things when he comes up with his theories. So he's not difficult, that one. In my opinion.
Jim,
Yeah.
there is someone in the chat who is a flat earther and would like to ask you
Okay.
a question. I will read the question as is. It's not 100% polite, but I'll read it, okay?
Okay.
Ask the NASA shill, why haven't we gone back to the moon in this century? I assume he means last century.
Right. Yeah. It's because it wasn't well, first of all, going to the moon was supposed to be a race to prove that capitalism was better than communism, that the U.S. was stronger than Russia. That was the big push because that was during the Cold War. We had just gone through the Red Scare in the 50s. So that went away, that drive to go back to the moon. And people over here in the U.S., for the most part, say we've got problems enough on the ground. Why throw that money away in space? And, the budget people and the people who work and interested in space say, well, the money stays here on the ground. We don't go up in space and throw the money away. But still, there's that feeling that we could do more here on Earth. And a lot of people just don't care about science, especially in the U.S. today. Even our politicians don't. So that's the main reason. No one wanted to go. They didn't want to spend the money.
Thank you very much. There you go. The guy was called Flat Earth Aussie Jesus, and Flat Earth Aussie Jesus, you have your answer. Thank you, Jim.
I think the bottom line comes to that is that I mean, what makes politicians is popular opinion, and politicians are not going to go along with something that goes against popular opinion because they don't get the votes, and that's as simple as that. And NASA, as we know, are a tax-funded organisation. You know, it's just that's the bottom line. So yeah, just building on what you said there, Jim. I hope you agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. People, of course, who are enthusiastic about going out to space and any new frontier think it's worth the money, but you got to get the support of the entire country to be able to afford it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's cheaper than it was, but it's never going to be cheap, is it?
No.
One of my supporters, Touchpad, has asked, how much would it cost to send people to the moon? Do you have any idea, Jim?
No, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
Oh, blimey. Yeah, that's hard to calculate, isn't it? I mean, it's it's billions and billions and billions. Because don't forget, it's not something that you can just calculate, you know, oh, this is how much it's going to cost between such and such a time. I mean, there's a lot of development involved, and it's something you build towards, you know, and it's over years and years and years of development and research. You know, you can't just suddenly just do it and know how much it's going to cost. But I think once we've gone there, we could probably look back and calculate and figure it out. I mean, but it will be massive amount of money. But you know.
Well, you know, if I had to figure out a number, I would start with the budget for Apollo over the 10 to 12 years, whatever it was, and throw in an inflation factor and say it's probably going to take at least this amount.
Yeah. So, Jim, apart from the science and the just wanting to do it because it's there, do you think we need to do it? Because right now, the entire human race is just on one ball.
Well, maybe philosophically, I would say that. I think that if we found out the world was going to end because of climate change or something of that order in the next 50, 60, 80 years, we couldn't establish ourselves anywhere else anyway. So we're not going to save ourselves by going back to the moon if that was kind of the thought. But eventually it might come to that. And rather than step backwards and say we're not going to do that anymore, I think we should try as much as we can afford to keep moving out into space, just so that we're there if we need to be.
Yeah.
And there'd be a lot of I think a lot of great things having a station orbiting the moon, or maybe out at one of the Lagrange points, and you could move more telescopes out there. And again, this type of advanced science, most people say, what's the use of that? I was with a group the other day, and the question of word problems, math problems, and word problems came up. And they said, well, who wants to do those word problems? I held my hand up. I said, I love word problems. But that was 1 out of about 10 in the group. You know, everybody else to do. What's the good of that? It's the same way with science. A lot of people say, what's the good of that? I don't see any good from it. So there we are.
Well, I've had a couple more messages come in. Earlier on, I said about the guy said it's the best show ever. Respect from Italy, 15 degrees. He's corrected me. It's 15 degrees per hour drift, not Celsius. Laugh out loud. And another chat from Twalex, who super chatted €2 saying, I'm a Mr. and Mrs. Skipper fan now. And a final one's come in from Touchpad again, who has super chatted 100 Swedish krona, saying, I could sit and listen to this for weeks. This is amazing.
Mhm.
And I have to agree.
Well, make some plans, and we can do it again someday.
That would be
Oh,
fantastic,
yes.
because I was going
Yes.
to ask you, Jim. Yeah, definitely.
What I now what I have found though, that after a while of discussing these things, people have found answers to whatever they could think of.
Yeah.
And it can kind of fade away, and you don't want to do it anymore. But if you have enough interest, let's set up another one of these days.
I think that's 100% definite, because let me have a look. Right now, we have 129 people watching. I don't know what it's been up to and dropped to and varied or anything, but that's a good number of people. And if we've got it advertised enough in advance, I think we'll get an awful lot more.
One of my
Okay.
objectives was, when I set my channel up, really was to be a part of trying to get people interested in space exploration again, a little, get excited about it again, because there's a lots of things happening now and stuff like that. And I mean, if you could play a part in that, and particularly with somebody with your history and your background, that would be, absolutely awesome, from time to time. So yeah, I'm really excited about it, really am.
Okay, good. And I'm glad there are people who know how to promote this.
Yeah.
I know right now the thing is the back and forth between flat Earth and globe Earth, but there's also this idea that there never was a space program, or at least it was all faked. So it's good that we have someone on the positive side of that issue, showing what's going on now. Certainly.
Yeah, my channel's not really about flat Earth, although I kind of I support the anti-flat Earth side of things. My channel is more sort of informational and educational and things like that. Like I said, trying to get people excited about that kind of stuff again. Like I was when I was, in the 70s, when I was 5 or 6 years of age, and I hope people to get kind of excited like that again.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's definite then, Jim. I am 100% up on this, and people are putting comments in the chat saying, yes, definitely do it again. Great, another would be phenomenal. So, yeah, please. If you would do us the honour, that'd be fantastic.
Can I please come?
I'll be glad to do it. So just let me know what you get set up and when it would be, and I think I know how to talk on this thing now.
Well, your voice is coming through absolutely crystal clear now, Jim. We do still have an issue in that when I'm speaking or when Casual's speaking, it's coming out on your speakers and then coming back into your mic, so we're getting echo, which we've lived with today. But what we'll do is we'll get it straightened out before, and then we'll have another good show, yeah?
Yeah, and I turned the speaker way down just now.
Oh, that's better, actually. That's a lot better.
Right. And the reason is that at one point when I got cut out of for whatever I was doing, I came back in, I couldn't hear you at all, and so I cranked the volume all the way up on my speaker. So much better like this, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a bit better, yeah, definitely.
But
and I can still hear you.
Jim, are you on a phone?
Yes, a smartphone.
Okay, because if we can do it on the smartphone, but with you wearing headphones or earphones of some sort, I think it would solve the problem.
Right, I'll do that. I'll be working on it. I got the headphone yesterday, and I've been listening to music on my laptop, and beautiful sound on that little headphone.
Good. A message from one of my helpful moderators. Give Mr. Skipper our best regards from everyone who turned up tonight.
All right, and the same to all of those folks. I don't know who they are, but it has been an honor to get to share what what I've had, and to know that there are people still interested in the history and in the future of the space program.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that Kaz will agree, but the honour is ours, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. The honour's ours.
All right, then, if that's about it, I'm going to close out and go check with my sons. They'll be heading home soon. It's getting dark. So.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, and a thank you to your sons and your family and your wife listening in as well. Thank you very, very much to all of them too. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And good night to all of you.
Jim, what I'll do is I will send you an email with a link to the original video, with a link to this live chat, so you can watch it back at your leisure. Okay, and I'll send you the graphic of the the picture I sent earlier. I'll make sure I'll send you a good copy of that as well. And yeah, let's get on and organise another one. That'd be fantastic.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Good night, all of you.
Thanks, Games.
Good night,
bye-bye.
Jim.
Bye.
Now, Jim, you'll have to actually disconnect though.
Well, it's phone.
Yeah, just below where your name is, there should be a phone with a disconnect X on it, if you recall.
Yeah, I had forgotten it.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And Jim's gone. Listen, wasn't that absolutely fantastic, Casual?
Oh, awesome.
I've had a grin on my face the whole time.
Likewise. sitting there like a little excited little kid, honestly.
And that, sir, is why I chose you as a guest. I knew that you would appreciate it.
Appreciate that. I really do. Thank you very, very much. It's been fascinating. That's probably one of the best live shows I've been involved with yet. I think really good.
I have so enjoyed it. And Joseph Grant just said, Mr. Sensible, you are the best. You told us it would be special and you couldn't have been more correct. Kudos to you. Wasn't it just? I can't see how I could top that with a guest.
Well, I'm probably gonna have to wrap up as well because I've actually been invited on the Shills, so I'll be over there, and I think they probably want to talk to me about what's happened here today as well. So,
and I think I will listen in on the side there. Colon, if you I see you around in chat. Can you please drop a link to the Shills? Thank you very much, Casual. Any final words before you disappear?
No, just to sort of say thank you. Well, yeah, I always got something to say. No, thank you very much for having me on, Anthony. Thank you for thinking of me.
My pleasure.
I still don't feel great, but I was definitely going to feel well enough for this, so I dosed myself up. So I'm still slightly under the influence of prescription medication, but
as long as it's prescription.
Oh no, definitely, yeah, no, nothing like that. Yeah, and also, yeah, if you come along to the Shills, Shills will be starting shortly if they haven't already. I'll be on that, and I think they wanted to speak to me about probably what's been going on here today. So I'll be interested to go and speak to them, and we'll have a little bit of a laugh and a giggle about it, and other things as well, like they always do on the Shills. And yeah, thanks very much to everybody for coming. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Nick Casual. I'll listen out to you on the Shills. You take care, mate. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Wow, wasn't that just something different tonight? Yeah, I know that I've been pushing this big time. I was on the Shills last night just to try and gain some interest for tonight, saying that there'd be someone special on. I'd set up the video. I'd set it up a day, 2 days ago, and then about 2 to 3 hours before it was due to go on, I changed it to a premiere. Unfortunately, it didn't tell anyone. No notifications went out. So I did a very quick video announcing it. And I also had my most excellent moderator, Colon, and someone else on my Discord, who I shall name, called an Anonymous, who ran around Discord, various servers, tweeting, dropping messages, advertising the stream, because as I hope you'll all agree, it was one not to miss. Jim is amazing, and I can't wait to have him back here again, and I will make sure that happens. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you for the super chats, and thank you for the 109 likes. I appreciate it. I really do. I will, as I said, recommend you all to please pop over to the Shills. I'm not quite sure what they've got planned tonight, other than the fact that Mr. Casual Spaceman is going to be on there. And Philosopher Nonsense has just got the notification. Fantastic. Touchpad Stream Major Month, thank you. As one of my patrons, you know how I appreciate it. And I'm just so pleased. I really am over the moon that I've been able to do this tonight. I really am. I am going to say good night. Because I spent so much time getting this organised the past couple of days, I have done I'm looking at I've got a board up here with my plans for the week. I've got nothing. I've got nothing for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday or Saturday. So I may have to skip a day or two during this coming week. I will try and get something. I'll do a live. I think it was going to be Thursday night, one of my regular live streams. Pretty sure it's Thursday. Tripping Full about mirroring, maybe at a later date, but obviously I want it to run on my channel for a while first. Please give the link out. Philosopher Nonsense, Hangout chat, are you talking about on here now? Because I would do that. My normal lives are sort of pretty much Hangout chats, and you'd be welcome to come in and join me. Only the Shills are starting. I've already overrun by 15 minutes. We did pre-warn them because of obviously the issue is getting Jim connected. And you need to see how the cheese plaque is holding up. Well, that may be a science experiment for the live stream. As I said, I think it'll be Thursday. Okay. I am going to end this now. Thank you once again, and we will do this again. So I'm going to say good night, and until next time, stay sensible.